I talked a bit last time about the need to start out learning design planning by asking ourselves how learning will be applied and why or what will stop application in the workplace. The best way to know the answer to why learning won't get applied is to do a work-based check by asking people directly what the barriers might be, whether that's through surveys or face-to-face discussions or something else. The basic point is to make sure that the path is clear for application to take place after training ends. However, there is another more fundamental step anyone can take when designing learning journeys that doesn't require much work-based research, but can be just as impactful. I call that problem analysis. Today we'll look at what problem analysis is and think of a couple of tips to understand how to use it in learning design. Problem analysis isn't such a well-known term mainly because, well, I made it up. But what it means simply is to look at a whole package of training so you can categorize it into its fundamental pieces and then ask why each piece would be difficult to apply to work. This can be done through analysis of the learning itself rather than going into the workplace to find out where application barriers exist. That's why I think it's a useful, cheap, quick, and effective way to design learning for application. So when I say categorize the learning into its fundamental pieces, what I mean is that all learning, that's all of it, falls into one of four categories, which can be called knowledge or information acquisition, developing situational skills, affecting habit changes, or affecting mindset changes. Believe it or not, all workplace training falls into one or a combination of those four categories. Here are some examples. Knowledge and information would be something like ethics or company values training that would rely a lot on people individually applying knowledge and converting ideas into personal behaviors. Another example is to do with situational skills or skills that can only be used in one setting, such as giving a presentation or performing a customer service task. Habits can be expressed as skills that need to be embedded into general work rather than specific situations. That would include things like time management techniques or exchanging continuous feedback. And finally, mindset training is all about getting people to take on new ways of doing things that they are somewhat reluctant to adopt. Quite often, innovation, creativity, or some type of facilitation like meeting facilitation falls into this category. So how do I do a problem analysis? Well, I start by looking closely at what people either need to know, do, or feel in the whole of the training program, and then categorize that into the parts I just explained, so that the sum of the parts comes to 100% of the program. Don't leave any stone unturned here. Then I'd ask myself, what is the basic reason why this part of the training won't get applied? The idea is to unearth a base problem in each part. Here is a very simple example of what that might look like with something that we're probably all very familiar with. Let's say you're making a training program for salespeople that is all about new product information. It's very detailed, specific, and the volume of information is large. A quick problem analysis of this would tell us that the information is easy to forget in the moment of need without referring to detailed text. It looks something like this. For knowledge, where there's lots of new information that's dense and complicated, it's basically easy to forget. Here's another one, also for salespeople. You're creating training that looks at using a new CRM, where accurate inputs and frequency of use are essential to the success of the investment in the software. The training would teach people basically how to use the software. A problem analysis here tells us that with a new process, people often fall back to the old ways of doing things when other work tasks seem to take priority. Like this. For situational skills like inputting data accurately, when there's lots of other work pressures, it's quite easy to just go back to the old ways of doing things, or maybe not do it at all. Whatever the case or training need, it's important to think in the following way. Firstly, that you're trying to identify the fundamental or base issue, which will likely be different depending on the type of training you're designing. And secondly, that you shouldn't be drawn into solutioning. It's quite tempting to put the cart before the horse here, but believe me when I say that having a list of problems at this stage of the design process is like striking gold. So when it comes to doing a problem analysis, the whole point is to get your hands on as much of the gold as you can and document it well so that other people, especially line managers, can see in a really transparent way why certain training programs are hard to implement in work. The next stage is to find the solutions to overcome the application barriers they've identified. We'll talk about that in the next video, but for now, that's all for today. Please follow us here and on LinkedIn, and I'll see you soon.